Hello, everyone, and welcome to Griplock Foundation Disc Golf's weekly podcast. I'm Hunter, joined as always by Trevor, and today we're going to kick the show off talking about Brody Smith getting his first professional win.
Yeah.
So he's cashed a few times leading up to this event, but recently he stepped away from the Pro Tour, decided to go back home to Texas, work on his game some, and he played one flex start, he said, and then this was his first real tournament since stepping away from the Pro Tour.
Right.
So he won by 2 over Bo Tillman, Coda Hatfield in third. We have an interview with him coming up in just a second, but just your initial thoughts on seeing him win this early into his professional disc golf career.
Certainly impressive. I mean, like, you can say what you want. Like, yeah, it was a B tier, but B tiers are not a joke, especially in Texas. And, I mean, he beat good players. We don't talk about ratings, but, he rated well. But, played good golf. So, like, I'm impressed that he was able to, like, turn it around that fast. And I think that, like, I'm very curious. Anytime I see something like that, I'm curious to see what the next event looks like because, that could be a huge confidence booster. Like, okay, I can play good golf and beat good players,
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see.
I actually want to, after the interview here, I want to talk a little bit about ratings because this tournament's making me question a few things, but we won't get into that quite yet. This tournament was actually, I believe it was in Oklahoma.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Durant, Oklahoma.
But I believe it was in Oklahoma. But yeah, I mean, Bo Tillman and Coda Hatfield are no joke names. It was definitely a great win. So there's no need to really stall on this. Let's go ahead and throw it over to the interview I shot with Brodie earlier today and hear his thoughts and perspective on his first win as a professional disc golfer. All right, so let's welcome in Brody Smith. So Brody, you're coming off I'm gonna call it a big win. It's your first win as a professional disc golfer. So let's go ahead and just walk us through that final round. Were you playing with the lead most of the round, or what did it look like?
Yeah, I went in to the final round with the lead tied with Bo Tillman, and then I'm not sure why, but the scores were like every few people it dropped by 2. So there was me and Bo at 9 under, then there were 3 guys at 7 under, then there were like 3 guys at 5 under, a handful of guys at 3, a handful of guys at 1. So everyone was loving the odd numbers, but yeah, going into final round, I played with Bo, Tanner, and Coda Hatfield. And then there was one other guy at 7 under on the chase card. So that was pretty much, I knew going into it, one of us 5 were going to win the tournament. And as long as the guy on the chase card didn't just like have an insane round, I knew I kind of had a good idea of what it was going to take from the people on my card.
Gotcha. Yeah. So what, recently you quit the Pro Tour to come back, and then, immediately you're welcomed with this win. Pretty much, was this their first tournament actually since the Pro Tour?
Yeah, I did like a flex start, which have you done a flex start before?
I have not. I've played C tiers, but I've never played a flex start.
Yeah, flex starts are kind of weird, especially on a course that you've never really played before. So like I went there and did like a practice round and then played the flex start right afterwards. And yeah, it's weird because you're basically playing against everyone's home course. Like no one travels to play a flex start.
Yeah.
So you're basically just playing against everyone's home, like it's their home course. So it was weird, but yeah, I don't really count that. So
Gotcha.
Yeah, this was basically the first tournament after removing myself from MVP and GMC.
So what have you focused on then since you've gotten home from Ledgestone? What has been like your number one focus that you think might have attributed to this win?
The first thing I took your advice and I threw all my discs to like actually know what the heck was in my bag and just be more familiar with how they all fly.
Yeah.
And then I literally just went to the field and I would have 30 of my roaches and I would throw those, and then I would have a bunch of buzzes, a bunch of Zeus's. I didn't really do like too many different molds. I kind of just kept with a couple molds, and I would set up like for the roaches, I would do different things of where I would have 150 to 175, and then I'd have 175 to 200, like every 25 feet, and I would work on throwing the first 3 shots in the first landing zone, and then the second in the next, to really work on controlling the distance of my up shots.
Mm-hmm.
And then other than obviously just getting a lot of reps in, there was small tweaks and stuff to my form that I was trying to work on. I now no longer kind of keep my head at the target as much. I'll let my head go back with my arm, and that has not only generated a lot more power, where before, the easiest way of looking at it is like my buzz. I was only really able to throw my buzz maybe 330 if I really ripped it. And at this tournament, I was leaning on that shot a lot and throwing it all the way up to like 380 feet. So a couple things like that, being a little bit more explosive with my footwork, and really, you were there firsthand at Ledgestone and Idlewild. You saw there wasn't very much confidence on the tee shots. I was very I have no idea where this disc is going, or I know this shot requires, is good for a forehand, so that's why I'm going to throw the forehand, but my forehand might not be where it needs to be. This tournament, off the tee, that was my strong point. I actually didn't putt that well. In round one, I think I was less than 80% inside the circle. So I mean, granted, it was Oklahoma, so it was really, really windy. So putting's a little bit difficult. And this course did have some good greens where it made it very difficult if you missed certain areas. So you could be still in circle one and really not have a putt at birdie. But yeah, my putting wasn't that great. I think I really won this tournament because I was super consistent off the tee, which is the complete contrast to how I've been on the Pro Tour.
Yeah, so speaking back to the Pro Tour, what did you find anything that you were able to pull from the Pro Tour that gave you that confidence at all, or was it just in going into this B tier tournament, or was it just the practice since you've been home? Was there any learning experience from practice rounds or ways to approach the tournament that you learned from the Pro Tour you could pull into this tournament?
Yeah, I would say, because my game wasn't nearly as good as it is now on the Pro Tour, I was having to play a lot of holes for par, where a lot of the upper echelon players are playing pretty much almost all those holes for birdie. So coming to this tournament, when I got to play it twice. Monday, the course actually wasn't set up for the tournament, so we didn't even play hole 4, because hole 3 and hole 4 in the woods, and hole 3 we played, and then we just walked out of the woods. We didn't even know hole 4 existed back there. So we missed the entire hole. And then there was a handful of holes that we either played the wrong tee pad or the pins weren't, because they have short pins and long pins. Mm-hmm. The pins weren't in the proper location. But Friday, I got to play on Friday, and everything was set up. And while I was playing, I was, really deciding, okay, is this a hole that I want to play for birdie, or is this a hole I want to play for par? And there were 2, almost 3 holes that were unbirdieable. Put Paul in that hole and give him 10 tries, and he's not birdieing it once, unless he throws in from 100 feet. Just the way that they're designed, a disc cannot manipulate itself to get actually inside a circle 2. So I knew those 3 holes, I'm just going to play smart, chip a 250-foot shot, throw another 250-foot shot, tap in, par, versus trying to eat off a lot on the tee shots. So I felt like I played those really smart. And there was a couple other holes that I played where, hey, if I don't land in the perfect spot off the tee, I know where the next shot needs to go to be able to make a par. And I think I took a lot of that from the Pro Tour, because I was pretty much doing that almost on every hole on the Pro Tour, of just how do I get a par on this hole?
Yeah. So obviously, from just what you were just talking about, you clearly, as you played the preparation rounds, you were taking notes and learning where you wanted to miss and stuff like that. So from your preparation standpoint and mindset standpoint, did you treat this tournament any different than you were treating Pro Tours? Because I know a lot of players, myself included, if I'm going to a big tournament like a Pro Tour, my mindset's different than when I'm playing a B tier. But I'm wondering if, because you were just shaking your head, so you didn't treat this any different, did you?
Yeah, no, because for me, you know, obviously I wanted to win, but I wanted to shoot the best I could. I was, day one, I wasn't thinking about I need to put myself in a position to win. I was thinking about how can I shoot the lowest round possible. I really didn't think about how I can win the tournament until hole 14 on the round 2, the final
Interesting.
round. That was when I was like, I was going to look at my score, because I didn't actually look at my score compared to the field at all in round 1. And I didn't look at my score compared to the field at all in round 2 until hole 14, because my game plan couldn't really change. There wasn't really any holes that it would be safer to lay up, or holes that I could get more aggressive and try to go for from hole 1 to hole 14. But hole 14 was a par 5, and that was the first point that I was like, okay, depending on where I stand in the field, I might have to try to go for this. Where in the first round, I just kind of threw a shot out, because it's a sick par 5. It's like a U-shaped, so you have to throw like a 400-foot tunnel shot straight up a hill. Then you have to throw then you're wide open in this field, and you have to throw like a 330-foot shot to like the mouth of another tunnel shot, and then it goes back. So it's like a U-shape. It goes back down through a tunnel, like 250, 270 to the basket. So that's how I played it. Was just like a dink, 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 and then made birdie. But you could get more aggressive off the tee and kind of get further down the U, if you will, to where you actually could potentially like carve one down the tunnel and have an eagle putt.
Gotcha.
But obviously throwing down a tunnel from, 350, 400 feet away, if you go left or right, like the woods out here, you would not like them, because there are so many spider webs, so many thorn bushes. It's a brand new course. They haven't had that many people play it. And they did a really phenomenal job of like mowing the fairways and getting everything. The tee pads were great. Everything was awesome. But it's one of those courses where like, if you throw it in the woods, unless it's like a disc that you really like, you might see it 20 feet in the woods and be like, yeah, I'm gonna get that.
I'll just leave that one later.
Yeah. So I knew that. So staying out of the woods was crucial. But no, the preparation was the same and the mentality was the same. It was just the confidence level, I knew that I could actually play good golf, and it just felt on all the Pro Tour events that I was always just like struggling. I always was just battling because I never could consistently get off the tee.
Yeah, I was wondering, because the reason I asked that is, first off, I knew your preparation wasn't going to change, because I knew, to you don't really feel the pressure of a Pro Tour versus a B tier versus whatever, that a player, honestly, like me, might feel the difference. But I was wondering, because I wonder how much that attributed to your win. The preparation being the same, treating it like the same as you treat the top players are treating big tournaments, you're treating the B tier. I wonder how much that separated you from the field, because unless you're a local, I know for me, if it's a B tier, I'm getting one practice round in, and, I might take notes, but I might only get 1 or 2 throws per hole. Whereas, you're probably averaging, 4 or 5. By the time you played the tournament, you'd probably thrown 4 or 5 tee shots on every single hole, I would imagine.
Yeah, I played it twice. There was, hole 4, I actually didn't get a chance to practice that.
Yeah.
I only played it, and it is a hard walk, so it wasn't like you really wanted to sit there and throw a bunch of shots, and it was also like 105 degrees when we played it. It was so hot down there. So I didn't actually probably get as many throws, but the other thing that I did differently is, if you go and look at, even my practice rounds from Idlewild or other footage that we have on the channel, I was throwing so many different discs off the tee. And this tournament, I was throwing Zeus, my Nuke, and Buzz. That was pretty much it. I didn't really change it up.
Was that just the way the course was designed, or were you manipulating those all kinds of different ways?
Yeah, I was manipulating them different ways. I have 3 Zeus's now that all fly differently too, which is nice. So I can, depending on, the shot, but also like I was doing things where there's a hole that's like 405 feet uphill. So it plays pretty long, but there's a gap that you have to hit that's pretty narrow, that is 100 feet off the tee, and then it goes wide open space, and then it goes again by the green, another tight gap. And so I played that hole smart, because if back in the day, I say back in the day, like what, 2 weeks ago, I probably would be like, all right, 400 feet, I have to throw an undertaker.
Mm-hmm.
And the problem there throwing an undertaker is, if I do miss left or right a little bit, I'm not going to have a birdie chance, and it might be even difficult for me to make par. So there, I'm like, I'm just going to throw my buzz 370 feet, 380 feet. I can't get to the trouble. And if I throw it really well, I'll have a 25, 30, 35-foot putt just short of the circle. So there was a lot of things of like that, of where I was figuring out landing zones and being okay with understanding not every shot I need to try to throw underneath the basket.
Yeah.
Play, if right is safer, play for the right. And if, it somehow sneaks back in left at the end and I have a 25-footer, great. But if it stays out to the right, I'm safe and I have a 40-footer, that's also fine. So there was a lot of things like that where before it's like, 400 feet, undertaker, versus now I'm thinking about it more of like, what's going to make me get a birdie chance, but also not have a chance of making a bigger number.
Interesting. So, as we kind of wrap up this interview, one of the final things I wanted to ask, because you'd spoken to you'd played with the lead most of the tournament, and that's just a completely different feel when you're there. Playing with the lead instead of trying to chase someone, you're trying to conserve something. So, what are some lessons that you're gonna be able to take away from this event as you head into the rest of your season, both mentally and with your game? What exactly does this tournament teach you?
Yeah, for me, I think it's just the confidence, and it's the what I'm doing practice-wise and preparing myself for these tournaments is working. Obviously, I was able to kind of put it all together and have a pretty good tournament. There's some things that I still need to work on for sure. I didn't make a single circle 2 putt, and I had a lot of chances at that. So there's certain things that I could have done better for sure, but the confidence of knowing that, whether I would have won or not, just the confidence of being able to see the improvement from the practice I'm doing is super helpful. And I know, like, going into the next tournament, I think my next tournament is not this weekend, but the following weekend. Going into that, I know that I might not throw off the tee as well as I did this tournament, but because you're not always going to play good golf. You look at the best players in the world, they fluctuate from how good they're playing. But just knowing that, as long as I'm going up, there's going to be some like kind of drops and stuff, but I need to be able to start going back up really quick after that, and I can turn it around. That's the other thing, is like this, both rounds, the first 4 holes, you really wanted to be like 2 under after the first 4 holes. I think almost everyone in the top 5 were 2 under both rounds, and I was even par. I didn't birdie any of these kind of easy holes at the beginning, and not letting that get away. I feel like, you saw Idlewild, Ledgestone, I kind of let myself get out of it a little bit. I never stopped fighting, but I kind of had this mentality of like, oh my God, it's going to be this round today. And understanding that I'm going to have some bad throws, but knowing that I went on a 6 birdie streak on the first round, and in the second round, I finished birdie to win the tournament. So there's definitely things of where I know I can kind of turn around and make it happen. And this is one thing I do want to say. Last thing I want to say is just statistics-wise, I took stats of myself because no one was really out there doing stats.
Yeah.
And I love stats because I feel it's a really good way of seeing how you're playing and where you need to improve. So I'm looking at Ledgestone. Oh, this is the entire Ledgestone. Okay, sweet. This actually works. So the entire Ledgestone, my circle, here, I'll let you guess. What do you think my circle 2 in regulation was?
So like
percentage wise.
that's the looks you had from Circle 2 for birdie, correct?
Yeah.
20%, 15%.
Okay. It was 40, so it was actually better than that. But
Sorry.
Circle 1 was basically like that. Circle 1 was 17%. So 17% of the time, I actually had a decent look at birdie, which is not good if you're wondering at home. The final round here, my Circle 1 was 67% and my Circle 2 was 83.
Wow.
So I think that's what it needs to be, because that tells me Circle 2 tells me you threw a good shot but not a great shot. Circle 1 tells me you threw a good shot, a great shot.
Yeah.
So 80 I mean, obviously you'd like to get that even in the 90s, but it just shows that I'm throwing my misses, like we talked about, my misses aren't nearly as bad. Because if you look at my misses from Ledgestone, they were probably the worst out of the entire field. Like when I actually threw a bad shot, it was just as bad as the guy that got last place. But then I also had some good shots that were just as good as the person that won. But the problem is, like, those bad shots, a lot of trouble. So I'm trying to make my misses much smaller and throwing a lot more of those good shots. Just continue to improve.
Well, awesome. Yeah, so thanks so much for joining us. Glad we could talk to you after your first win. I'm sure first of many. You got plenty of tournaments still coming up. I know, I saw people saying, oh my gosh, Brodie has quit disc golf after you left the Pro Tour. Obviously, that's not the case. You just made the decision that was clearly smart for you to come home, get your game where it needs to be so that next year you can get the results you want on the Pro Tour. So, hopefully we'll check in with you again here shortly after a few more tournaments and hopefully a few more wins. Anything else you want to say as you wrap up?
Yeah, everyone get those sticker packs Friday. They're going to go fast. It was Friday at 5 Central?
Eastern. 5 p.m. Eastern.
5 Eastern. Oh, yeah. Don't do 5 Central. We'll probably be gone by then. All right. Thanks, guys. I'll talk to you guys later.
So the main thing I got from that interview, he definitely went home and practiced his drives and stuff like that. But the thing that I found interesting was he didn't seem very happy with his putting throughout it. And yet he was still able to pull out this win, which, as he mentioned kind of somewhere in the middle of his interview, I think it was, that's like the exact opposite of how his game was playing.
Right.
Being able to be good off the tee and then not rely on his putting is the opposite of what we saw at both, not as much Idlewild, but definitely at Ledgestone.
Yeah.
But one thing that I kind of brought up beforehand, and I want to get into a little bit more now, and you didn't know I was going to bring it up, but we're bringing it up.
Oh, boy.
The ratings, right? So Brodie here averaged upper 1020s. I actually don't have it pulled up right now. But what I wanted to talk about with it was this weekend made me reconsider my stance on ratings. Because I've been very adamant about get rid of the ratings at the top. There's no point.
Okay.
Right? But just think of it this way. Without ratings, looking at Brodie's win, how would we know whether it was a good quality win or not?
By the quality of players he beat. That's what
how
you've been
would you know
arguing
the quality
the
of players
time.
he beat without ratings?
Their track record. What they've won before.
So we'd have to go look at Coda Hatfield, Bo Tillman.
We've never argued that ratings doesn't simplify the process of being able to look and see get immediate feedback. We just have judged the accuracy of those ratings.
I agree with the accuracy.
Because
I will 100% agree with that.
You've said yourself that you want players to be judged based upon their track record.
Yes.
So there's your answer.
Well, that's true. And I agree with the accuracy part of the rating, because
if ratings were accurate, they'd be great.
But
they'd be fine.
I think, okay, so the confusing part for me, right, is let's just say the ratings are accurate. Let's say they're perfectly accurate, which they're not, but let's say they were.
Yeah.
Do the pros still have them?
Well, I don't have a problem with them existing even at the pro level. It's just I don't think it's the fact that they're paid attention to so much even by the pro players. So that's there's so many advanced metrics and statistics in professional sports that are thrown around for every sport, and those athletes don't care about them. They just care about winning or losing and whatnot. So I don't mind, as a sport, it's good to have a lot of different stats. It helps us consume, what we're watching and understand how good players are and what's going on. But when they're misleading, like I believe ratings are a lot of the time, that hurts that process.
Yeah. So, yeah, because I think this is what it came down to was we saw Paul tweet out this past week about ratings and how, you know what? I'm going to do something a little unprofessional here. Pull out my phone and find this exact tweet because I want to quote it. Because I don't want to misquote Paul on what he said about ratings.
All right.
But this kind of started, this tweet that I'm pulling up right now kind of started a whole, I don't want to say debate, but it got me rethinking about it again. Here it is. Paul said on 4 days ago, so end of August, I find it quite odd that Nate Sexton or Big Germ didn't once mention ratings in the CBS broadcast. Oh, wait, that's right, because they are pointless. And then he put an asterisk and said, for professionals. This got close to 600 likes and 38 responses. A few days after that, I put out just a blanket tweet basically asking ratings for professionals, good or bad, and why. And what I kind of got interested in was the ratings themselves, right? Like, if you look at, when we compare them directly to a handicap, I think is where the whole idea of ratings disappearing when you become a pro goes, right? Because I even was talking to a PGA caddy over Instagram. You know, hopefully we'll, talk to him some more and possibly get him on the podcast, something like that. But I was talking to him and just asking him, I asked him, like, the PGA, professional you caddy for, if you asked him his rating, would he know it? And he said, no, he'd laugh at me. So that's where the idea, at least in my head, was coming from, was, if the rating system was meant to be the handicap system, then why is the pros like so heavily like focused on, and why is it there? Basically, like, what good does it provide? But then with one of the responses was, where exactly was it? I want to give this guy credit because I thought it was a good point, but basically it might be too hard for me to find. Basically he was saying, like, ratings themselves don't hold back anything. Like, ratings in themselves, it's the number next to the person's name. They aren't bad. They don't do anything wrong. They don't stop anyone from doing anything. They don't stop tour cards. They don't stop payout adjustments. They don't stop anything that, like, we've talked about multiple times progressing the sport. They don't stop any of that. But because of how highly influenced or how highly emphasized they are in the sport, that is actually what hurts it.
Right.
So then that got me thinking. Well, that plus this tournament got me thinking.
Ratings, yeah, if you look about like what they actually influence, it seems to be like probably where their effect is most seen as far as like actually making an impact is like players getting sponsored, So like that. And like not even obviously the top players, they're sponsored regardless. So their rating's not being considered. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's more like those bubble players. I feel like that's probably where the biggest impact is. But I don't know if ratings are really hurting the game that much, except for the fact that it makes players that are newer that are trying to like work their way up, they concentrate more on ratings than wins.
Yeah.
They're just thinking about how can I get my rating up, not how can I win.
I can see that, yeah.
And I think that translates into the top of the game where we have guys who don't care about winning either.
Yeah, they just start caring about their rating. I can understand that. I don't know. When I was looking at Brodie's round, in looking at the tournament, my immediate thing was I saw he beat Coda Hatfield and Bo Tillman. I knew both those players already, so I knew it was a good quality win.
Yeah.
But then it immediately made me go, well, how good was it? And I hit show round ratings, and I looked at it, and I was like, oh, wow, he played really good. And I'm like, wait a second.
But you don't know that, yeah. It's like reflex to see a rating and go, that's good or that's bad, but we know for a fact that ratings can be messed up.
They can be skewed, but so the rating system is messed up in the fact that, like, it's going to be skewed by a certain number of points, but if a round's over 1,000 rated or over 1030 rated or over 1020, it's a good round.
I mean, yeah, you can assume it was good.
Yeah. And so, like,
I think it's more noticeable when there's sometimes 970 and 980 rated rounds that should have been 1020 and 1030 rated rounds.
That will happen occasionally. So maybe the rating system could be flawed, sure. But I was just saying, like, I feel like we've, at least me, several times have called for ratings on the professional level to just go away. And I think this tournament at least made me question that stance of, like, is that actually, not is it good for the sport or is it bad for the sport, but it makes me feel more like it doesn't hurt or help them staying there. Like, it doesn't really, it helps me as a fan.
Yeah, I don't, like,
it doesn't really do anything.
I don't have a problem with them existing. And I think they're fun for AM players to an extent.
Well, AM players need them.
Yeah.
Because AM players, you have to know which division and you have to be able to separate divisions within AMs, because there's a 970 rated player, no matter how much ratings vary or mess up based on regions and who's in the field or not, a 970 rated player should not be playing rec. So that's where a rating is needed. And I think that's the whole point of it, is Paul and others that have talked about this is saying, like, that's the point of ratings. So I think from that perspective, it's like, why do pros have ratings? Because once you get to a pro, you're a pro. You're in the open field. Like, anyone can play open.
Maybe like a solution. Well, I don't know if that's a solution, because it's different.
Here's what I think.
Round by round, it's different. Yeah. What if your player rating caps out at 1,000?
So I've thought of that before too.
So like your round rating can go higher than that, so we can still see how it was for that round, but like your player rating caps out at 1,000.
So here's what I was thinking, right? Which I like that idea. That was actually before, when people would ask me, they're like, okay, so let's say ratings disappear, all right?
Yeah.
Mr. Smart Guy, where do they disappear at? And I was always like, well, I don't know. Like, that's why we're talking about it.
1,000 would still be fair.
1,000's fair. And I do like the idea of round ratings still showing.
Yeah.
Because you can still tell, like, oh, he beat a quality field because it's 1,000
like
plus. But
a 1050 round can still influence like a 1050 round if you're below 1,000 rated.
So here's a separate question, okay? So let's just say ratings exist, period. Paul's still 1060 rated. Everyone's still their rating, right? There's no like 1,000 plus next to his name. It's still 4 digits.
Right.
What if instead the like pro tours, majors, we could even possibly say national tours, the top tours ratings don't exist? Because I think where ratings lose their thing or lose their, because this only works in a scenario where there's tour cards or a qualification process.
Right.
Because if ratings lose their point to a certain degree, if the players who need to be there qualified to be there, so like the top of the top's already there. So if this player is finishing in 10th, that's a good performance. It doesn't matter what the numbers next to his name could say 980. That doesn't matter because he just came in the top 10 of the top 100 players in the world. Mm-hmm. So it doesn't matter if it was a 900 rated round if somehow the ratings got that messed up. So I'm almost coming at it from that perspective now, saying like, maybe it's not a professional blanket statement. Maybe it's not a pro, because technically I'm a professional. I've accepted cash. Mm-hmm. So when I go to a C tier or a B tier, there's no real point in getting rid of my rating, because, a lot of people I play with are still AMs and stuff like that. Like, there's no benefit to getting rid of it or keeping it. There's no real benefit either way. But once you get to the top tour level, if players are saying, if players don't want to have it, there's no real benefit to keep it. But to me, as long as the media, and I think it comes down to the media, as long as the media and people talking about it aren't highly emphasizing ratings over everything else, I just don't like when Eagle wins or Ricky wins or whoever wins, and the first thing you hear is he won shooting a 1095 rated round.
Right.
Like if that's the immediate emphasis, I don't like that.
Well, and another interesting thought too, what you were saying about it, like not existing on like the pro tour, national tour, that kind of thing. I think a useful thing with the rating system is when courses are played that we don't really know how they play. Mm-hmm. So if a guy goes to USDGC and shoots 10 down, we know that's good score because we know how Winthrop Golds plays. Yeah. Okay. So we know 10 down is good. We don't need to see a rating to know, wow, 10 down was awesome. If a guy goes to a course we don't know anything about and shoots 10 down, the rating does help us assess, is that because the course is super easy or was that actually really good? Like 10 down. Like, I think it wouldn't need to exist on the pro tour because those courses hopefully become familiar with the audience to where they know if somebody shoots this score at a certain course, we know what that score means at that course.
Yeah. That's true. I don't want to talk about ratings the rest of this podcast because I feel like we've
it's a rabbit trail.
Hammered this topic into the ground. But I will say one of the reasons I like there being like a rating cap, like 1,000 rated, 1,000 plus next to a player's name, and you just see the round rating, is because of rating inflation. To the point
it just
that
keeps going.
No matter what, if players played the same, the way the algorithm and everything works, if players played the same and they didn't get better, and the same players kept beating the field and all that, ratings would still generally rise. Yeah. I don't know what the percentage is by year, but it's just it's when you base it on a player's performance instead of how hard the course is, then the rating's always going to go up.
Yeah.
So that's why Paul is getting better. The field is getting better, but you're going to see the average rating of a pro field continue to increase and increase and increase and increase to where 3 years from now, the highest rated pro is probably going to be in the mid 1070s or something like that. Not saying that player is not that good, but that's just going to keep going up because of the fact that ratings are going to keep. It's just rating inflation. That's a thing, and it's because it's based on the players and not the course. So
maybe one last thing. Maybe like another solution is just adjusting the scale on which ratings are.
So based on the course?
Well, like right now the rating scale goes from like technically, I mean, really it fluctuates from like 600 to 1,000. You know, what if it goes from 0 to 100? You know, like what, I don't know if changing the scale would make things different, but
I just think no matter what the scale is, I think when it's based on the players and not the course, it's always going to be finicky, and it's never going to be perfectly accurate. No systems can be perfectly accurate. But one other thing, this will be the last thing because I want to get to the rest of this podcast. I don't want to be the podcast that talks about ratings week in and week out. But one other thing is in golf, there's obviously local pros, similar in disc golf. So if I was a local pro, quote unquote, I only played like local tournaments for cash. Yeah. Do I know my handicap?
Well, the thing is, the term pro in ball golf is not used nearly as lightly. So like if you consider yourself a pro golfer, whether that be a local pro or a touring pro, you're scratch or better. Well, you're better than scratch probably. And even if you know it, you definitely aren't talking about it.
So it sounds like in golf.
And the thing is, like in ball golf, you have to actively get a handicap. You have to play like 5 rounds, I think it is, at a course of your choice, get the scorecard signed. Like you have to try to get a handicap. So like as a local pro, you have no reason to do that. So like, because in disc golf, like if you play a sanctioned event, you're going to get your rating regardless. In ball golf, you have to literally pay and like get yourself a handicap, and they expire after a certain amount of time. So like a local pro has no reason to do that whatsoever, because local pros are usually teaching pros. So like, you know, they know their stuff. They don't need to have a handicap to like say, come learn from me. This is my handicap. You know, they'll say, come learn from me. I'm certified in all these different technologies to help you learn your swing and whatnot. But no, it's not. People don't even like, I mean, I played high school level, and I played like handicaps don't really get thrown around except for like weekend things where people are trying to like decide how many strokes you should get, because it's a matter of money, you know?
Yeah.
Like how many strokes should we give you to make it fair, that kind of thing. Handicap is not nearly looked at the same way.
And I just know that the whole idea from ratings came from the handicap system. So I always was curious where.
Well, it's like a mixture of handicap and like the fact that ball golf courses have like a slope rating and like a course rating. So like disc golf doesn't have that. So they almost had to combine like handicap and the slope / course rating type thing into one to make it an abomination. And it's kind of what happened. But it's definitely different.
Yeah, I just, when I was looking at the tournament, I started questioning everything I'd said. And I was like, I need to bring this back up because I don't know if I feel the same way anymore. I don't know. There's still definitely things to talk about with that, because I know the whole reason Paul brought it up is he was pushing for a true world ranking system instead of it being based on ratings, which I could definitely see the benefit in that. And, you know, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it that will help us look more professional as a sport and stuff like that. I get all of that, but I don't know if the answer is ratings going completely away. Was the whole reason I wanted to bring it up, because I think there's some benefits to the rating system. Final topic on the Brody win. What do you think this means heading into the rest of his year and like expectations for next year? Was it like a one-off fluke, or is this going to be something we see pretty consistent?
I don't think it was a fluke. He shot high-rated golf before. Like, he's played good golf. So, like, I don't think it was a fluke. I will say it, like, seeing him play on the Pro Tour and struggling, I was thinking, I wasn't really sure, like, where the ceiling was. I didn't think it was, like, super high. After that, like, being able to turn yourself around that quickly and win, I think it, like, takes me back to almost, like, when he first started playing professionally, to where, like, I have no idea where the ceiling is, you know? He could very legitimately stay on this track, like because like there's a lot of really good disc golfers now who do not practice, you know, they've gotten to where they are and they're pretty like set with that, and they don't practice a lot. So like if he takes it seriously and like we've seen it, like practices and plays all the time, like he could, you know, be a top 30 player on the Pro Tour in the next couple years. Like
Next couple years?
in the next,
I think next year is the top 30.
I said the next couple years. It could be
Yeah,
next year or the
couples
year
too.
after.
Because here's my thing, is one thing we have to remember with Brodie is it's not like, yes, he started playing in January,
Yeah.
but it's not like the guy's never thrown a Frisbee before.
Well, right.
Like he obviously has a lot of mechanics and stuff that he
Right.
knows release points, and it's not like it's unnatural. So
Exactly.
it surprised me it was this quick. You
Yeah.
know, because I expected when he left the Pro Tour to come train back in Dallas and all of that and started his off season early. First off, I didn't expect him to play a tournament this soon. I expected him to take some more time, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's just what I was expecting. But with him playing a tournament this soon, I just didn't expect it to be a win, and not even it was a good win. Like if he averaged that kind of golf on the Pro Tour, you know, he was in the top 50 for sure.
It was legit.
It was a good. It was 2 rounds, but it was a very solid 2 rounds, and it was a very surprising 2 rounds. You know, and we'll see. He has several more tournaments placed for the rest of the year, so we'll be able to kind of keep track of that as it moves forward. But I do think one thing I really got from the interview that I think personally I got like from my game was his mindset into the B tier. And I purposely asked him it because I could tell the way he was talking about the tournament and his preparation for the tournament.
He's taking it seriously.
He didn't treat it anywhere like I treat a B tier. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just me. Maybe you guys listening or you show up and play several practice rounds and have detailed notes for a B tier. Maybe that's a fault of mine because if this was an A tier that I'm going to play whenever, I'm doing that. If it was a Pro Tour, I'm doing that. If it was Worlds, I'm doing that. But if it's a B tier or C tier, I ain't doing that. C tier, I might not even play a practice round. I've played C tiers blind multiple times.
Yeah,
you always regret it.
Yeah,
but I've done it. So that's something that I took into account. That that's an obvious thing that's going to make you play better immediately. Is just knowing the course, knowing where to mess up, knowing where not to mess up. And I honestly don't know why I haven't done it up to this point.
I mean, it takes effort.
It does. And so if you're a newer player listening or watching us, I think that's something that you can learn from Brodie's journey is like he did it backwards. Mm-hmm. Sure, I wouldn't recommend starting on the Pro Tour. We've talked about that multiple times. He did it backwards, but doing it backwards, the only way he knows how to prep for a tournament is to prep for a Pro Tour.
Well, and he got himself out of there, at the right time. He noticed he was getting buried and discouraged, and he said, well, let me get out of there. If you stay on the Pro Tour, it just is going to get worse. So he got out of there to reset, figure his game out before trying it again. That's the key.
Yeah. Definitely the right decision, and it's already starting to pay off. So exciting to see the rest of the season with him. Something else that was exciting, and hopefully we get to see the rest of the season. Actually, we definitely won't be able to see it the rest of the season, but I don't know what I'm saying. The CBS broadcast was this past week, and our podcast aired technically after the second round was shown, but we hadn't watched it yet because we filmed it before the first round ever aired. So this is the first time talking about it after actually seeing the broadcast. So first off, give it a grade. A, B, C, D, or F.
Pluses and minuses, do I get those?
Sure, give it a plus. Or a minus.
Honestly, when you consider that they only had an hour time slot, I'm giving him an A minus. Maybe honestly an A. I'll give an A.
Interesting. So what's keeping you from giving that plus? I'm at an A as well, so don't think that you're wrong.
Yeah,
but
it's probably, and it comes down to the fact that they were time constrained, but the way they jumped around sometimes, I didn't love it. There were a few things that were a bit off. It's so minute though that I don't know. I don't like giving things perfect grades.
Yeah,
I think that's it.
I was on an A for 2 reasons. One, and they're both because of the time constraint. But the first one was the big German Nate Sexton commentary. They did an absolutely phenomenal job. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
But I think it's because of how rushed it had to be that they talked. Because, an hour coverage is realistically 40 minutes probably of actual disc golf.
If that, yeah.
And so they talked the whole time pretty much.
Nonstop.
To where there wasn't much downtime. And I never noticed it on YouTube watching Jomez. Part of the reason I think is because they have time. And the other part, I think, was the mindset of sitting down and turning on CBS Sports. I don't know if this was the same for everyone else, but for me, my expectations of what I was going to see were higher. Not than what I saw, but like higher than what I would see on YouTube.
Right.
I think that the production quality and everything met my expectations.
Yeah.
But I held it to a higher standard in my brain than when I'm watching on YouTube.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was that or if it was just that they were rushed, but I just was like, in my head, I was almost in like a golf mindset to where I expected when a player's teeing off, you don't hear anything.
Yeah.
And you hear the swing of the club, the hit of the ball.
It's
or
tough
you
when there's
hear,
no gallery, too. So
That's
they didn't
true.
even have the option of filtering that in.
That's true. But I don't know that, like I said, that's the only reason I'm not giving it a plus is because of that and because they had to cut shots out to make it fit.
Yeah.
So you didn't actually get to see shot by shot coverage, which if it was the full, like let's say it was a full round and it was actually produced by CBS for CBS, not what we're used to, you wouldn't see shot by shot anyways.
No.
Because it would jump
depends
from,
on the player. If they're following, like, if you're following Tiger Woods, you're going to see every single shot.
So I guess Paul, Ricky, Eagle, whoever's hot that weekend.
Yeah, and it's kind of like in ball golf, it's kind of like a feature card system where like they're going to follow a featured group, and then they're going to jump around.
I will say the one thing I really liked, and I vividly remember it round one, I'm sure they did it the other two rounds, but I just remember the first time it happened, was they jumped back a hole to Emerson.
Mm-hmm.
And so we were on hole, I want to say like 5 or 6, I don't know. And the lead card just finished it up. They threw their tee shots,
yeah.
and then they're like, all right, now here's what happened moments ago with Emerson Keith. And it went back and just showed Emerson's 3 shots on a good, like a perfectly executed birdie. And they showed it kind of as like, this is another way to play the hole.
Yeah.
Loved that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I think the reason that we don't see that in normal disc golf coverage is because if you jump back a card, you're going into Central Coast round.
Right.
Or if you jump forward a card, you're into Jomez round. Or if Jomez jumps forward a card, they're into the Disc Golf Network. So that's where our current structure kind of limits us, is that the Disc Golf Network, I think the Disc Golf Network is the only one that can jump card to card because they're live and they own the rights.
Everybody else would be stepping on toes.
Yeah, exactly. So everyone else, like Jomez, not a lot of the stuff, but some of the stuff they did jumping around, they can't do day to day.
Right.
And then Central Coast obviously couldn't. Gatekeeper can't. GK Pro with the FPO coverage probably could because there's no one else covering FPO, but that would require a larger team than they might have.
Yeah.
But that is something interesting that got me thinking a little bit, is like, that's something I would love to see, is multiple cards covered. But until all the coverage is under one house, we can't see that.
Yeah, it's true.
So, Brodie was on Smashbox after this win. When you're listening to this, it'll be like 2 nights ago.
Mm-hmm.
And that was one thing they were talking about, was the pros and cons of moving to fully live in the future and if that'll ever actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what's tough about disc golf is I, just like probably everyone listening and probably just like you, I'm a Jomez fanboy.
Same, yeah.
Love Jomez, love everything they've done, love everything they are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Their coverage is well above what we deserve.
Right.
I love Central Coast too. I love Gatekeeper. I love anyone that provides coverage.
Yeah.
But the issue is that as long as they exist, Central Coast exists, GK Pro, Gatekeeper, all these coverage ones exist, we'll never get the live coverage that everyone wants, if that makes sense.
Well, I think and this is speculation, a lot of it, but I think the reason that the Pro Tour is using multiple companies is because no one company has a big enough team to cover as many cards as they'd like.
But if you paid Jomez the amount to cover,
well, that's just the thing. I think it's pretty much unanimous that amongst disc golf fans that Jomez is the top dog. Like, they do the best job.
Probably even among disc golf coverage companies, it's unanimous.
Right. So it's just going to come down to Pro Tour deciding, that they just want to contract Jomez, and so Jomez can afford to have a big enough team to do all of it.
I do think
and I don't think that's very far in the future.
Well, I do think whether we go post-production or we go all live, it needs to be all in on one or the other, and it needs to be all under one umbrella.
Yeah.
Because the reason behind that is we need all eyes on one thing.
Yeah.
One. And so not even like Jomez produces lead card, chase card, whatever. It needs to all be one production, period. Because the whole reason I say that is how are we supposed to sell this to a sponsor if we're getting 16,000, whatever it is, concurrent live viewers? This is all MPO numbers. Live concurrent viewers with this stream, we're getting 50,000 per 9 with the Jomez coverage, and we're getting 30,000, whatever. Yes, there's a lot of overlapping, but there's also some that's not overlapping.
Yeah.
So let's say that we combine all of those. We might be able to, if it's a post-produced one round on Jomez, or if it's fully live on Disc Golf Network, I think lives are always going to get less than post-produced. But live, let's say, because post-produced, if I watch it and then I show you it and then I show my mom it, I just was 3 views.
Right.
Live, we're all 1 view.
Right.
But regardless, let's just say live, I think we could push like 20,000+ if that was the only way you consume disc golf coverage. It's going to be 20,000+. If post-produced on Jomez and it's all chase, lead, third card, all one coverage, their views are going to go up. And then that makes it a lot more attractive to bigger money marketers, whatever you want to call the people that are selling the Jomez production, the Pro Tour, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's definitely a less confusing product to pitch.
Well, like name a sport that and this is a good point that Brodie brought up. It's Smashbox, and I never thought of it this way. But name a sport where you can name the production company.
Like not the
network.
Not the
network,
but the production company.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I assume it's usually in-house, but
you see what I'm saying?
I get what you mean. Yeah,
like the fact that we can look at
it's
Jomez, Central Coast, Gatekeeper. We have all of these production companies.
Of the main televised sports, I think it's the only one of those you can say got its start by being post-produced. And I might be wrong on that, but as far as the big sports.
So I wonder if, and I feel like Spin TV kind of tried this, but I don't think I think a lot of stuff in disc golf that has been tried, but it was tried too soon, or it was tried with not good enough technology. But I wonder if the Pro Tour could still hire out the same crews, Jomez, Gatekeeper, whatever, but it's all in-house on the Disc Golf Pro Tour's YouTube channel or something along those lines. I just think getting it all under one roof could be beneficial for things like the CBS broadcast, because the CBS broadcast, I guarantee you their live numbers, even just the amount of disc golfers watching, were higher than we're seeing anywhere else right now.
The thing with that is it just becomes a turf war because those companies know that they can get more revenue if they have stuff under their own channels. They want that stuff on their own channels. So they're going to be hesitant to all buy in, especially when you're one of the not Jomez guys and you're buying in there with Jomez and you're not even the best company in there. You're probably worried about the Pro Tour controlling your revenue a bit more, having power over you. It's definitely,
it's tough.
It's a pretty big struggle. And I
just think it's a weird struggle disc golf's in, that we're going to have to get creative to get out of. Because, and the fact of the matter, to me at least, looking at it is, even if we're bringing in, Jomez brought in Arby's, right?
Mm-hmm.
Even if Jomez by themselves are able to bring in these massive sponsors to Jomez, right? That helps the sport.
Yeah.
But how much bigger of a sponsor could we get if it was all combined? So even if everyone's getting big sponsors, what could they get if they were all together? And it's a weird situation because, if you just look at production companies in general, right? You don't know the production company unless you're the business looking for the production company. Yeah. So if we had a commercial produced for us, you wouldn't know the production company that produced it for us.
Yeah.
It would be on Foundation Disc Golf's YouTube channel or whatever. And that's what I'm getting at, right? Is that these Jomez at its nature is a production company.
Yeah. So those companies have to decide, are they willing to be absorbed, And because Jomez already has a really good thing going for them with their channel. And they have this independence. So they have to say, can we become even bigger if we decide to just become part of the Pro Tour, where we're not even, Jomez might be mentioned, kind of like it was with the CBS coverage. We saw their copyrights, but really it was the CBS coverage.
Yeah.
And it's tough to know how much of I don't even know how this worked. Did CBS just give Jomez all of their graphics and the rights to use them and then just let them go with it?
I don't know.
Or did they just use the footage from Jomez, and then some of the stuff? I'm not sure what that all was, but let's say Pro Tour, Jomez says, we want to become part of the Pro Tour. We want you to be your exclusive, guys in charge of doing all your production stuff. And so we, instead of we'll use Pro Tour graphics, we'll use Pro Tour logos, anything that we bring over from Jomez, we'll kind of add a Pro Tour twist to it. Does that help them in the long run? Or are they just well, let's ride out this post-produced hype train as long as we can while that's still the main way to consume disc golf, and we have our own thing and we have control over it. It's definitely in the middle of a shift right now.
Yeah.
And they're kind of caught in between. I have no idea how it's going to sort itself out.
If I was Jomez, I don't know what I'd do. Because short term, 100% stay as a separate entity.
Right.
No doubt.
You have to think about the long term.
And the potential long term, possibly stay as a separate entity will work. There's no way to know where it's going.
The big issue would be if somebody like the Pro Tour were to get bought out by a CBS, not bought out, but picked up by a CBS Sports Network. And then CBS says, oh, sorry, we're bringing our guys along. And since you're not a part of the Pro Tour, you no longer have any rights to film any of this.
That is true. I think that
I can already see that happening and disc golf community getting outraged.
I was going to say, because
I can see it happening.
That would be an issue of, we're in the disc golf community as a collective. So Jomez and Central Coast and all their existence makes sense to us because that's the only way we've consumed disc golf up to this point.
Yeah.
That always will make sense to us.
Yeah.
But if you come from an outside perspective, it probably doesn't make sense because
nobody else does it that way.
Yeah, and that's the tough thing is
there'll always be
what's the benefit?
Highlights post-produced.
If I was the Pro Tour, okay, and I'm looking at this thing, really the issue to me is not an issue. If I'm Jomez, the issue is that the Pro Tour holds all the cards.
Yeah.
Right? Because we all love Jomez, right? There's no doubt about that. But at the end of the day, if Jomez is never filming a card that Paul's on, we're still going to watch Jomez because of the quality and everything. But at the end of the day, I'm going to watch Paul's round.
Yeah.
You're
going to prioritize that, yeah.
Yeah. And so this is where I think that disc golf's tried this in the past and failed horribly with Steve Dodge. He did this when he was just a man kind of ahead of his time with this idea.
He held all the rights.
He held all the rights, brought all of it in-house.
And used it was bad coverage.
It was horrible.
Yeah.
But the idea in itself wasn't horrible. It was thrown upon us to where you snapped your fingers one day and Jomez wasn't a part of the Pro Tour.
Mm-hmm.
It was just thrown upon us. It wasn't. I'm sure he consulted with Jomez, but he didn't consult with the disc golf community.
Yeah.
And wasn't phased in. And they didn't test it. So their big launch was the Memorial. And the live
awful.
Coverage sucked.
It was so bad.
Yeah. To where the cameraman he brought in and never filmed disc golf, the cell service. The idea was great. It's fine, whatever. But I do think that that's an interesting thing. I don't even know how the heck we got here. But that's something that I am sitting here and I can see it going. I can see where it's kind of going, and I think you're right. It's going to be more along the lines of when a CBS Sports or an ESPN2 or a FS1 or whatever.
Yeah.
Some sports network comes to the Pro Tour and wants the broadcasting rights or the ESPN Plus rights to their live. Nobody
else is going to be filming it. Yeah.
As I'm saying, they're not going to allow anyone to be pulling from them because they have to have those views for their commercials and
especially with ESPN Plus, you can go back and watch that stuff too. It's not it's only live with them. No, that's going to be, you're able to go back and watch that. So that I can really, it seems almost inevitable that if you don't hop on board right now, the Pro Tour is the big dog. And if you don't hop on board, then they could get absorbed by somebody bigger and you could get left behind.
Even if you do hop on board, even if Jomez sold out, right? And went Pro Tour and they're we'll be your... That might not matter if CBS or ESPN comes in and says, hey, we're going to bring our full golf crew, and set up at this event.
Yeah.
We're filming.
That's just the question is a company with big enough pockets is probably going to be smart enough to at least utilize somebody who's so familiar with filming disc golf and knows it. Now, because then my question is, when CBS Sports Network was thinking about this, did they hire on Jomez because for that reason, like they're the best, let's use them? Or was it, we don't really feel like dragging a production crew out, their stuff looks good, we've seen it, so let's just throw our name on it and see what happens? It's a matter of which one was it, and we don't know.
Yeah. Because I will say, I feel like from what I've seen of golf and what I know of disc golf's harder to film. Because of, not necessarily like like following the ball, but as far as in the woods, knowing the flight of the disc. Because I mean,
if you don't know the sport,
exactly, that's what I'm saying. Like bringing in, like golf, I feel like they set up towers on a lot of holes, or like one tower can cover 3 or 4 holes.
Yeah,
you can't do that in disc golf. At least most courses, you might be able to at like the country club, Emporia Country Club, but like,
well, that goes back to our old question of how long is wooded golf going to be around?
Well, I think wooded golf's going to be around for the long haul, and I
think
just
have to figure out new ways to film it.
We'll have to film out. They'll have to figure out not even new ways to film it, because I think Jomez does a great job. It's more new ways to broadcast it, because I don't know if the signal, like where are we ever getting live TV from deep woods?
Well, you got to bring in a truck, like it's got to be a full setup.
Yeah, that's the thing too, is disc golf has to have the audience before any of this happens to warrant them sending out a full crew and truck.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't even know, again, I don't know how we got here, because I just wanted thoughts on the broadcast. But it is a very interesting thing that, I didn't really, I don't want to say I didn't think of, but I hadn't given much thought to until Brodie and Smashbox were talking about it.
Yeah.
And they were bringing it up and they're talking about it. I'm like, oh.
It's interesting.
Yeah. Because we've talked about is post-produced versus live, but I've never really thought through, like, A, I've never thought through CBS Sports or someone coming in, but B, I've never thought through how crucial it is to have everything under one roof. Even if it is post-produced.
Mm-hmm.
I think it is crucial that disc golf soon gets everything under one roof. Whatever that roof is, I don't know. Realistically, it would make the most sense to be like the Pro Tour does the Pro Tour coverage.
It's a lot clearer now than it was years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, even it being, if Jomez puts their foot down, which that's the thing, is does Jomez in this situation, does Jomez have the power to even put their foot down and say no? Because what happens?
No to what?
If the Pro Tour is like, we're bringing everything in-house.
Yeah.
Does Jomez even hold the cards to say no?
Ooh.
Because like they could immediately go, if Jomez says no, they could immediately go, okay, Central Coast, are you willing?
Right. You're saying if they want to bring Jomez under them, or else they're not filming, and Jomez just says no.
That's a tough decision if I'm Jomez, because
you call their bluff.
If I say no, I'm not doing that, because me personally, like it from foundation, right? If someone showed up and it would have to be a big dog. Literally, it would probably have to be like Discraft. If Discraft was like, you have to sell as Discraft, and your brand has to go away, or else, like every part of me says no. But if I'm in Jomez's shoes, if you say no, you're risking the thing you built your business on going away.
Yeah, if you can't film the Pro Tour, then you don't really have much.
Yeah, I don't even know where this conversation's going, but a lot of it, I'm just like live talking about it, figuring some stuff out that I'm like, we're going to face some interesting stuff in the next few years of coverage, and I don't know what's going to happen. And I don't know what to feel about what's going to happen.
Yeah, I don't know. I just hope it works out.
I mean, it'll work out. It's just, how will it work out? Mm-hmm. Interesting stuff for sure. So let's go back to the CBS Sports coverage. Because I do want to highlight some stuff that Jomez brought to the table that we've never seen before, which is hole previews where the drone, they literally like highlighted the fairway.
Yeah. They showed the landing zones really clearly, which was really cool.
So stuff like that, that thing, they had drone footage of throws where overhead, they were way up above overhead. Stuff like that, is that something you think we can expect? Like, let's just say GMC, because that's coming up this weekend. Are we seeing this at GMC?
Well, I don't know if the reason we saw it is because there was more equipment. I think that's why.
Well, was it more equipment or more time? Because they did have a month. That's
yeah,
the thing I keep
but
coming
like
back
having
to.
a drone parked over top of a hole,
Yeah.
like that. Like I think that comes to having a bigger crew and more.
That's true.
More
A bigger
equipment.
crew, more equipment. But what about the
I think
whole preview thing where like that one time they literally flew through a follow flight?
Yeah, that's a good question. That might be something that.
Like, is that because they had a month?
Well, that may have just been like we have so much time to do these graphics because Jomez has a pretty fast turnaround time.
Mm-hmm. Next day, every time.
Yeah, so that may have been the case, or maybe it was somebody came along from CBS and say, "Hey, this would be cool," and now Jomez is like, "Oh, that's something we haven't thought about before." So maybe Jomez got a bunch of ideas, and hope.
I like to think it was follow flight Mike, just like this was within him the whole time. And he was just like,
it might be the case.
he was just like, look, guys, if I had 3 days, I can do this. And they're like, we got to get it out next day. Which, I mean, he has time beforehand, so it's not 3 days. I personally, I just think it would be too overwhelming to have to do it. Because realistically, a lot of times Jomez's schedule is they show up to the course. They have like 4 days before the event starts to film the flyovers and their like B-roll stuff and get all that set. And I feel like that is probably not enough time for follow flight Mike to sit down and do the drone sick thing, whereas a month was enough.
I guess we'll find out.
We will find out. I hope I'm wrong because I really want to see it again.
Yeah,
it was sick.
It was cool.
So speaking of GMC, let's get into some predictions. This is going to be, I don't want to say a weird event, but it kind of feels like a weird event simply because of the quarantine process and everything the players had to go through to get here. So they basically had 2 options, or I guess technically 3 options. You could go home, take a COVID test, and then after you took the test, quarantine for 7 days.
Yeah.
And then after that 7-day quarantine was over and you had a negative test result to show as well, you could go up to Vermont. Or you could do pretty much the same thing in Vermont. So show up in Vermont, take the test, quarantine yourself until you got your test results back, and then if you showed the negative test, play. Or if you didn't want to take a COVID test, show up in Vermont and just quarantine yourself for 14 days.
Yeah.
So from social media, I got the feeling that players were doing all 3.
Yeah.
It seemed like a lot of players were doing a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I know Paul and Hannah came, and Haley King were here, took the test and quarantined and waited till they got their all 3 negatives. And then they were overly cautious because they wanted to make sure they played by the book. So they waited the full week, even though they got their test on like day 4. They waited the full week and then headed up to Vermont and drove straight through the night. And then I saw, I think like Ricky's already up there. From Ricky's post, I didn't know if he was doing the 14-day or the 7-day.
Not sure.
Either way, he was quarantining up there. And then I'm trying to think who it was. There was one player I saw on social media that was doing the 14-day.
Yeah.
I don't know which one I would have picked. It's doing that gets you into Green Mountain and Maple Hill. So I could see the benefit in doing it, but it's a lot of work to do it. Right. I mean, not really, but kind of.
Yeah.
In the fact that you got to either go park, no matter what, you got to go park somewhere for at least a week, possibly 2. But the players have done it, so now they're good for Green Mountain and for Maple Hill. I haven't heard of any positive COVID tests that this has brought forward. So
I've not either.
I don't want to say it's surprising, but it's good.
It's good.
It's good news. Disc golf is still kicking strong with no positive COVID tests. So going into GMC this weekend, let's just get straight into the predictions. We've seen these courses. I haven't heard of any major changes to either course. And this is always one of my favorite tournaments to watch. It's so
it's a cool
scenic.
course.
I want to get there.
Yeah.
We got to find a way.
All right.
Let's go do a face-off.
I'll follow you.
So I'm going to let you go first. On the MPO side, who you got? Who's your top 3?
We're going to have, I guess we'll start from 3rd. I'm going to go with my boy Nico.
Okay.
This might be a completely incorrect statement, but I'm pretty sure he's had some success at this course. I know I've watched him on some coverage here before.
I think 2018 Worlds, he was definitely on lead card.
Right. I think that's where it was. So I'm going to go with Nico. He's been around. He's been hanging around. I like Nico. So second, I'm going to go with Ricky. And then first, probably pretty close by will be Paul. I'm going to give Paul this win. Won pretty convincingly last year. He's due for a win this year. It'll probably be a battle. I think him and Ricky battling is going to be the pattern for the rest of the year. So, should be close. But yeah. I'm thinking he gets back on the board this week. He's very much due for a win.
Yeah, I'm agreeing with you on that part. I think Paul takes this one down. He had a 9-stroke win last year. 2018 at Worlds, he came in second to Barsby. And then in 2017 was his only career DNF with, was it his ankle or his back? It was one of the
back, I think. I don't know.
Might have been his ankle. Has his ankle been hurting him for that long? No.
I'm pretty sure it was a back thing.
It was back.
Like
His
he pulled
ankle
a
was
back muscle or
USDGC.
something. I don't
Yeah,
remember.
so 2017 he DNF'd. But regardless, a 9-stroke win last year's hard to pass up. It shows that he's comfortable at this course. But it also, like you'd said, he's going to be a little fed up.
Yeah.
Because he's coming off of, I don't want to say not great performances because he's had a chance at winning Idlewild, and then Ledgestone, Ricky just absolutely dominated. But historically, I feel like Paul, if he loses a few in a row, he doesn't like to keep losing. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be tough for someone to beat Paul. But the one man that can is Ricky. Ricky's been on a little bit of a tear.
Mm-hmm.
At Ledgestone, he just looked like the old Ricky.
Yeah, I did.
And, that's kind of scary for the rest of the field because Paul has been playing good all year. He's had up and downs, sure. But to see Paul playing like Paul in general, nothing crazy, but playing like a good, decent Paul. And then to see Ricky coming back to Ricky form. If I'm the rest of the field, I'm looking at it like, all right, are we stepping back into 2014 to 2016 or what's going on here?
It's going to be hard to beat them. It's going to be hard to beat them.
I do think that one player that could is Eagle, but he's not who I picked for third because I'm picking Chris Dickerson.
A little bit of Woods?
A little bit of Woods,
Yeah.
sure. He just historically, he's played pretty good here. Nothing great, but nothing bad either. These courses seem like from his past finishes to kind of play to his strengths and just from what I know. So I feel pretty confident with Chris sneaking up in there. Even if he's not third, he's going to be up there, I feel like.
Yeah, it's a good
Eagle's definitely another player to watch this weekend. He took Ledgestone off, but he won back-to-back at D-Glow and then Idlewild. And, he's going to be coming in hot. And I feel like Kevin Jones is another one to keep an eye out for. So, Nico's a good pick that you had in there. I didn't really think too much about him, but he definitely has played well here before. And I feel like we also, sometimes you see a player like a Steve Brinster or MJ. I don't even know if MJ's there this year.
I didn't see.
But these courses, you'll sometimes see a player like that. One of the more, I don't want to say old school, but kind of old school named players that you haven't heard in a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
They seem to sometimes show up at this tournament.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me to see someone like that sneaking in as well. And I'll let you go ahead on the FPO picks as well. Who you got taking this one down and then coming in second and third?
Yeah, so FPO is going to be pretty similar to what I've been going with. I'm gonna have Paige winning. That's really hard to pick against her. I'm gonna have Katrina in second, and I'm gonna go with the narrative that it's gonna be close. I think it will be close. I don't know if we'll see Paige have a blowaway win the rest of the season. To be honest, I think everybody's starting to creep up on her a bit. And then I'm gonna go with Haley King in third.
Okay. I'm actually going against what I wrote down.
Okay.
So I wrote Paige winning, but I'm flipping the script.
All right.
Sarah Hokum takes this one down. She has always been in the running here. And Paige, I don't know. To be honest with you, I just feel like Paige is the easy pick, so I don't want to pick her. But I do feel
it does feel like that.
I do feel like when you get in the woods, it's not that Paige plays bad in the woods because she always plays good. I think
it definitely evens field.
The woods allows other players to shine. Where a player like Sarah Hokum, who has a consistent forehand, as long as her putting is there, she's going to put herself in a position. So I have Sarah first, Paige second, and Kat third. Kat's been throwing the disc great, especially at Idlewild, or Ledgestone, last tournament 2 weeks ago, whenever it was. And again, I think her very similar to Sarah Hokum. If she can get her putt together, she's going to be in contention. Yeah. But Kat typically throws the disc well enough that she's in contention anyways. So as long as her and Sarah Hokum can have their putt together, I feel like they've got a shot at this title. But I'm just excited to see this coverage. I love watching coverage here. It's only been a few weeks, but I feel like it's been a long time since we had Disc Golf Network, live coverage, and obviously the CBS Sports coverage filling that in definitely helped. But so the final pick we got here is the dark horse pick.
Right.
So do you remember yours off the top of your head?
I have it right here.
Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and talk about mine. I don't know a lot about this guy. I don't even know how to pronounce his name. Well, this is actually the second or third dark horse pick that I don't know how to pronounce their name.
You got to figure that out.
Jamin Hume.
Sure.
So if you don't know about dark horse picks, basically the rating cap, which yes, we use ratings for this. Rating cap was 980. It's got to be someone below 980 rated, and we basically say that this is going to be someone who plays well above their rating and well above their expectations. Try to highlight and create storylines amongst lower players, and it's been pretty entertaining. Ledgestone was a little underwhelming our picks, but mine won.
That was the first week that they weren't like surprisingly good performances. I think.
What is our record right now?
I believe you're up 2-1.
2-1.
Yes, because you won the first week. It was close, and I won pretty convincingly the second one, and I think you won this last one.
Yeah, I think that's right. So now we're on to week 4. Trevor could tie it up, but I'm going with Jamin Hume. He's had some decent finishes as of late, and honestly, that was the only factor I looked at.
Yeah, I've got this guy Keenan Johnson. I believe that's the pronunciation there.
That's a pretty easy one to pronounce.
I mean, he's not like he's 978 rated. Like his ratings bumped recently. My biggest reason for picking him is he's played like every Pro Tour event this season, and he's playing all of them. It looks like, so he's no stranger to the Pro Tour. He's not going to be frazzled.
Yeah,
we'll put it that way. And he's had some decent finishes. So I mean, he just cashed at Ledgestone. I know everybody did, but he was only a couple over par, which is pretty good. Like 20 better, impressive. 20 better than what I picked. I'm pretty sure for last time. So yeah, that's my pick, Keenan Johnson.
Nice. All right. Well, there we go. We've got our 2 dark horse picks locked in, and as always, like to wrap the show up with a little bit of foundation news. We have some apparel that is still being inventoried. Not sure the exact drop date for that, but be on the lookout for that. We should have a Discraft restock in soonish. We don't have exact confirmation on what or when, but hopefully soon to both. And the final thing is, when you're listening to this podcast, tomorrow is the sticker drop.
It's a big day.
I'm going to let you in, listeners, on not a
Whoa.
secret, but a little bit of a secret.
Whoa.
The holographic frosted tip paw is the rarest sticker. So if you happen to pull one, post that sucker on Instagram, tag us in it, let us know that you pulled one. If you're sitting there and you're like, are we kidding me? We're talking about stickers? Like, are we 12? Look.
We get it.
Well, they might not be for you, but they sure are for people like me, because when I'm making these, it's been pretty hard for me not to pull the rare ones for myself, because I love collectible things. I love like collecting and trading like basketball cards and sports cards, and heck, even I got into a few different like card trading games that it wasn't like Pokemon or anything like that, but like games with a similar idea where it's like, oh my word, did I just get this card? I love that. And so the idea the thought that we might be able to provide people with that same type of excitement, even if it is stickers, and I think they're practical. That's why I like it. It's like a sticker you can put on your water bottle, you can put on your laptop, you can put on your car. Like if you want to just get them to have stickers, you can get them to have stickers if you don't care about collecting them. Like at the end of the day, they are stickers. But the collecting thing, I'm pretty excited. It seems like everyone on Discord and those places are excited as well.
Seems like it.
So definitely a lot of people out there excited. I'm gonna be in that sticker trading channel probably, throwing up a few. I have 2 packs. I've already opened them. I didn't get a holographic frosted tip paw. I want one. Name your price. I probably won't pay it, but if you're interested in like the sticker trading and stuff like that, if you're a person like me who's definitely going to get in on that, make sure you check the link in our description below to our Discord and join there. There's a sticker trading channel where people can post like what they've been getting and trade them. I think it's pretty straightforward. So definitely an exciting drop, something new, something we haven't really tried and I haven't really seen tried in the disc golf world. So we'll see how it goes. We're feeling it out. And if it goes well, there could be more in the future.
Yeah.
All right. So that's going to be it for this week. Hopefully you've enjoyed the podcast. Let us know in the comments down below what you've thought about all the topics we're talking about. And we always appreciate constructive criticism. If you have any, throw it down there. We do read it. Even when it hurts our feelings, we read it. So other than that, guys, we will be talking to you next week.